All right, everybody, that is my time. Let's get into some awards and some celebrations. Thank you so much. Let's celebrate some people. Program is about to start.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Council for Court Excellence 24th Annual Potter Stewart Award Gala. I am Joe Davidson, a columnist for the Washington Post and a longtime district resident with a strong interest in justice issues. Although we are not able to be together in person this year, we are glad that so many of you are taking the time to join us virtually. It is my pleasure to serve as your host. Tonight's theme, Rising Above, speaks to what we've all been striving for amid the difficult circumstances of the last year. We've had to devise ways to rise above the tragedy of COVID-19 and rise above the trauma of the ongoing violence against Black and Asian American people while engaging in a racial justice reckoning. But rising above also speaks directly to the impressive work of our honorees, who have overcome very challenging circumstances to advance justice. I am honored to join the Council for Court Excellence, or CCE, this evening to celebrate the contributions of these individuals and law firms and to recognize the improvement that CCE makes in our community. But before we turn to our awards, let's thank those who made this celebration possible. We must first thank the generous Chair Circle sponsor, Deloitte. The Justice Champion sponsors, Akin Gump, Brent Fox, Arnold and Porter, Lockheed Martin, Ulico, Venerable, and Wiley Rein. And of course, to each of the other justice leaders, benefactors, patrons, and advocate sponsors, all of whom are listed in your program and on your screens. All of your contributions to this event make CCE's work possible. Please join me in thanking these generous sponsors in the chat. I encourage you to use the chat function throughout the night to say hello to your fellow attendees, to congratulate the honorees, and to shout out the things you're glad CCE has done in the last year. Also, don't forget to check the digital program that you receive for more detailed bios of the honorees and information about this event. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce the heart of this organization, CCE's staff. As they are all working remotely, they decided to record one of their recent staff meetings as a window into their day-to-day operations and their reflections on this last year. After we hear from the staff, we'll be joined by CCE's president, Patrick McClone.
Okay, folks, well, let's get this staff meeting rolling because, as always, we have a lot to do this week here at CCE. How's everybody doing? What, this like 400th day into this pandemic? I know, but hey, I will say I think we've been doing pretty well working remotely, you know, by and large, except for maybe that one time where Faith couldn't figure out how to turn off the kitten filter either. That was embarrassing.
Or when Casey got a little too comfy and showed up in her bathroom.
Well, lucky for us, no one ever records these staff meetings. Anyway, before we go through the plans for this week, I did actually want to take a minute to recognize that it has been a uniquely hard year, and we've really had to rise above some very difficult circumstances to achieve our mission. And so I know it's easy to get caught up in all of the pain that this year has caused, but I think now more than ever, it is important to remind ourselves of the good that CCE has been able to accomplish. So with that in mind, I think let's switch things up a little bit this staff meeting and take some time to reflect on what we are most proud of in this last year.
I'm really proud of all of you, our team and our work. CCE really rose above to play such a key role in expanding eligibility for good time credits and compassionate release as COVID was finding its way into our jails and prisons. You know, we know the pandemic hit DC's incarcerated residents so hard, and we helped people find relief. The first time, 519 people who were sentenced in the 90s are eligible for the good time credits that everyone else already gets. And since we expanded compassionate release, we know at least 69 people have come home from prison.
I can go next. I think it's really cool that we were able to successfully pivot a lot of our justice education and public forums to virtual settings, including our Benchmark Media Dialogue program on access to government records during a pandemic. We even hosted the Chief Judge Candidate Forum, and we're also able to do a few school jury education program virtual classroom visits with amazing judges in DC schools. I think I'm most proud of rising above to find new ways to come together and continue to educate DC residents during this time.
I can go next. Honestly, I'm just really proud that CCE has maintained our coalition work over the last year, despite all the challenges of the pandemic threw at us. Big shout out to our estate administration working group that is studying the barriers that people without lawyers face when trying to go through the probate process. They really have stayed the course and are developing policy recommendations right now.
Yeah, and I'm proud that we rose above the Zoom fatigue and the overwhelming number of crises to hold true to our vision. And through our district task force on jails and justice, we've harnessed the urgency that was created by the pandemic and the protests for racial justice to create a comprehensive 10-year plan to transform DC's criminal justice system.
With everything that happened over the summer, I think I am proud that CCE was still able to support the DC Reentry Action Network in launching their first phone pilot program, where we purchased smartphones and prepaid service plans for the district's returning citizens to help them stay connected to loved ones, case managers, and other support services that they need during the pandemic. The virtual landscape has been rough for all of us, and it's become imperative for everyone to have access to technology. And smartphones, laptops are often luxuries that we take for granted. So I'm just most proud that CCE was able to rise above and get creative to help and respond to the needs of the returning citizens in the district.
Even building off of that, we were able to support the advocacy that led to DC establishing the first affordable housing pilot for returning citizens, which I think is great.
Yeah. Oh, wow, you guys. I mean, even though I know those were just a few examples of our work in the last year, it really is quite clear we've accomplished a lot. And I'm really proud of all of us and our leaders. You know, we've really stayed true to our tradition of trying to be a responsive and nimble organization focused on meeting our community's needs. And plus, you know, we've stuck with our longstanding and collaborative approach, and that plus our respected stature in community, I think, has made all of that work possible in 2020 and early 2021. All right, well, I think we've used up all our time for staff meetings, so I guess everyone should just probably
take the week off.
Make pottery instead of working.
Send a bunch of angry tweets.
Make the interns do everything.
No. Let's just maybe stick with everyone continuing to do a great job and working hard, because despite all of those unhelpful suggestions you've made just now, I know in my heart that CCE is very lucky to have one of the best staffs around. So let's have a good week, you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat McGlone, the proud president of CCE. Let me start by thanking our staff for their hard work. CCE couldn't have made it through this very tough year without them. They never dropped the ball, and they never wavered in keeping all of our projects moving forward. Because of their dedication to justice and our community, CCE has become a bolder and stronger advocate against injustice and for a more equitable District of Columbia. But CCE is also successful because of our amazing board of directors and volunteers. For the past 39 years, CCE has worked to improve our justice system. Luminaries of the legal, business, civic, political, and judicial communities have always been part of CCE. Today, we honor that history and the balanced approach that CCE has always brought to its work. And now, with our current group of leaders, which includes people who've been part of CCE since it was founded and people who just joined this year, CCE is rising above to deepen our impact in the district. Additionally, our funders and individual donors really stepped up in the last year. People didn't shy away from sustaining our work or getting involved in our projects. Our supporters were more generous individually last year than ever before. It really touched me to see so many recognize the value of CCE's efforts in the community and help us to weather the financial challenges brought by the pandemic. We are forever grateful for that trust and solidarity, which allowed us to rise up and continue our mission. In the coming year, we will continue to innovate and evolve, and I hope many of you will be part of these efforts. Without question, tonight's honorees share CCE's core values. They have improved the lives of the residents of our nation's capital and advocated for some of our most marginalized neighbors. I'm honored to be part of tonight's celebration and will be cheering and raising a glass to each honoree. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Pat. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our first honoree of the night, the law firm of Akin Gump. As the pandemic began, advocates including CCE have lobbied for a new law allowing incarcerated residents whose medical condition, disability, or age, factors making them particularly vulnerable to COVID-19, apply for release. Along with a handful of other organizations, Akin Gump mobilized immediately after DC's emergency compassionate release law passed last April to establish a coalition to help people begin applying ASAP. Tonight, we have the honor of hearing from individuals involved in and affected by this important work. After a short video about the firm's pro bono efforts this last year, we are honored to be joined by Akin Gump partner Stephen Schulman, who will accept the award on behalf of his firm and colleagues.
Akin Gump has represented DC inmates in parole hearings for a long time. And so once the DC Council passed its version of the First Step Act or compassionate release, quickly many organizations got together to try and figure out how to help this unique group of individuals.
Hundreds of prisoners sought assistance. The law firm of Akin Gump stepped forward and developed a team of people who have been screening and now have screened more than 900 cases for eligibility for the appointment of a lawyer.
We knew that they were sitting ducks basically in prison. And so myself and some other associates started reaching out to different organizations. And so this informal kind of reach out led to and morphed into the DC Compassionate Release Law Project once the emergency statute was passed last spring.
Our clients are DC citizens who have been incarcerated for decades. They were especially high risk because of their age, other underlying conditions, and so without compassionate release, there was a chance they could die.
I got to know the team when my husband was up for parole for the first time, and they made it feel as though there was nothing happening outside of our case. And so they really had a strong impact on how we move forward, not just with our case, but with our life.
It's bittersweet. You know, you feel great that you're able to help these men that really have no one else that are there advocating for them. A lot of them are spread out across the country. To be able to provide a listening ear to them means a lot to them and to me. What's really hard is that you can't get everyone out.
Compassionate release is being able and willing to show compassionate to people that otherwise society feel contrary to showing compassionate to, and willingly are able to help people and to forgive people and to execute justice on their behalf.
The team at Akin Gump has shown an extraordinary dedication and commitment to this project, putting in thousands of hours, both screening cases and handling cases on behalf of district prisoners.
I guess I would just like to thank Akin Gump for giving us this opportunity and being so flexible. I mean, the minute COVID hit, the minute this coalition came together, Akin was 100% on board with allowing counsel, a first-year associate like myself, to really dive in and take leadership roles ourselves.
I just want to say congratulations to the whole team, and I wish you many, many more great awards in the future.
I would love to say thank you to the Akin firm and the team of lawyers, professional, administrative staff, paralegals, everyone who came to the table. Their leadership has been tremendous and what I would characterize as servant leadership.
I'm incredibly honored to be a part of a firm that is dedicated, again, so much time and resources to this important project. They're really, in a wonderful way, just too many attorneys and staff to thank for all of their help. But I just think that each and every one of them should be just so proud of their fight to achieve justice, especially during this incredibly trying year.
Hi, I'm Steve Schulman from Akin Gump. I'm the pro bono partner, and it's such an honor to accept this award from CCE. This past year has been tough for all of us in different ways, but imagine the fear and the loneliness of those who were imprisoned in 2020. COVID rampaged through jails and prisons, infecting and killing at much, much higher rates than in the general population. Those who didn't catch COVID were isolated from visitors, including friends and family. I'm proud that the DC legal community stepped up last year to help DC residents in prison. As you may know, local DC residents, when they are imprisoned, are put in Federal Bureau of Prisons custody and placed in federal prisons all over the United States. So this population is already isolated, even in pre-pandemic times. During the pandemic, they were separated by hundreds, if not thousands of miles from their families in the district. My Akin Gump colleagues, who for years have worked on parole cases with the Washington Lawyers Committee, under the leadership of my colleague Abby Coleman and Stacy Mitchell, offer to help the Washington Lawyers Committee, the National Association for Criminal Defense Lawyers, the Council for Court Excellence, and DC PDS and others to help create a program to help DC prisoners after the DC Council passed that compassionate release program you heard about in the video. Thanks to their efforts, along with our Akin Gump colleagues, Amanda Lowe and Margo Rasconi, they joined to help dozens of applicants, both by screening their cases and placing them with other law firms, but by representing people like Mr. Hunt and Mr. Catlett, who you saw in that video. It really has been, for both us and our clients, a life-changing exercise. And together, we are proud that we made the life for DC residents during the pandemic at least a little bit better. So the Council of Court Excellence, thank you so much for this honor and for joining us and our other colleagues at Washington Lawyers Committee and at Wiley. I congratulate my good friend, Ted Hauer. And again, thank you very much for this. It will be treasured forever.
The award was well-deserved, Steve. Congratulations again, Akin Gump. Our next honoree is the law firm of Wiley Rein. Alongside Akin Gump, Wiley stepped up to respond to requests from individuals seeking to apply for compassionate release as COVID-19 entered our jails and prisons. Among this firm's many other significant pro bono efforts in 2020, lawyers and legal assistants at Wiley stepped up at this critical moment of crisis and helped vulnerable incarcerated individuals seeking compassionate release to find counsel amid the pandemic. Individuals close to this work have prepared a short video to share the impact of Wiley's reach. We will then be joined by Wiley Rein partner Ted Hauer, who will be accepting the award on behalf of his firm and colleagues.
Law firm Wiley Rein has had a long commitment to working with District of Columbia prisoners and has handled some of the most complex cases. When COVID hit and the clearinghouse was created, Wiley stepped forward to both assist in the screening of cases for placement with lawyers, but to take some of the most complex cases where you had complex jurisdictional issues, prisoners who might have a conviction in both the federal court and the superior court, where you had to navigate complex law, and played not only the role of taking those cases, but was a resource to other lawyers who needed assistance on cases that they had volunteered to represent prisoners.
Wiley Rein became involved with the DC Compassionate Release Project because of its work with the Washington Lawyers Committee. So they volunteered very early on, jumped into the very critical work of the coordination and management of the DC Compassionate Release Project, and have walked hand in hand with the other partners throughout the process.
This was an urgent initiative in 2020 because the prison population was disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, and particularly those elderly and infirm inmates who weren't able to observe the same CDC guidelines that people in the general population are able to.
So the number of prisoners seeking compassionate release skyrocketed. And not only were the volume of cases skyrocketing, but the urgency of these cases was just truly unprecedented. My client put it extremely poignantly to the judge. He said, Judge, I was sentenced to a finite period of incarceration. I was not sentenced to death.
Apart from the legal work of moving for compassionate release, it really also entailed Wiley staff and lawyers getting to know our clients and getting to know their families, and really just advocating for them in a time that was really scary.
This is an incredibly well-deserved honor that's being bestowed by the Council for Court Excellence. The work that Wiley Rein and Fielding did on the Compassionate Release Project is consistent with its deep and long and abiding commitment both to bringing justice to district living of prisoners, and more broadly, a commitment to equal justice here in the District of Columbia.
They have been very humble and willing to do whatever it takes and expend their firm's resources, the time of highly trained, exceptionally brilliant attorneys, paralegals, administrative staff to get the job done. And I greatly appreciate them. And I believe that the other partners in the Compassionate Release Project share that gratitude.
I am extraordinarily proud of the contribution that Wiley has made to the compassionate release effort. I'm a proud employee. I'm a proud participant. And I am also proud to stand in the ranks of all attorneys who have stepped up to answer the call for justice by taking on these pro bono compassionate release cases.
Congratulations to Wiley and everyone at the firm who has participated and who will participate, because you deserve this award very much.
Congratulations, Wiley. We worked hard for this. I'm so proud to be a part of the team, and let's take the same energy that we had through 2020 all through 2021 and into the future.
Good evening. Thank you all for attending, and thanks, Joe, for the kind introduction, and to CCE for the lovely video. I'm Ted Hauer, the pro bono partner at Wiley Rein LLP, and on behalf of my wonderful colleagues at the firm, I am honored and humbled to accept this Justice Potter Stewart Award from the Council for Court Excellence. I'm especially pleased for Wiley to be recognized alongside my friend, colleague, and role model, Steve Schulman and Akin Gump. Steve and Akin Gump have long been among the recognized standard bearers within this vibrant, energetic pro bono community that we enjoy in DC. And any time that we accomplish anything that is regarded to be on a par with Steve and Akin Gump, it is a very meaningful distinction and cause for celebration. I would also like to recognize and congratulate tonight's other honorees Patty Fugere, and Kojo Nnamdi, two truly legendary figures in this city's legal services and broadcast media communities, respectively, who are most deserving of any and all honors that they receive. Jonathan Smith and I go back a long way when it comes to efforts to address and tend to the legal needs of the incarcerated. The first significant pro bono matter I ever took on as a lead counsel capacity was an excessive force case on behalf of prisoners at the DC jail, which was referred to by the DC Prisoners Legal Services Project, led by Jonathan in 1989. Then as now, in a very real sense, prisoners' conditions work was and is racial justice work. In present times, when the public health crisis has disproportionately affected communities of color, and our nation has sought to come to grips with the reckoning driven by concerns for racial injustice, work on behalf of prisoners is as important as it has ever been. So when Jonathan called seeking our help to support the newly formed Compassionate Release Clearinghouse, I felt a particular urgency to say yes if we could pull together the necessary human resources to do the job. I needn't have worried because, as they invariably do, our remarkable group of energetic, enthusiastic legal assistants were ready, willing, and able to answer the call. To be clear, the Lawyers Committee, the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, Families Against Mandatory Minimums, and the DC Public Defender Service have been and are the leaders and key players in the work of the clearinghouse. But in order for them to do the work that they have done so effectively, someone had to screen the applicants seeking assistance and help with critical eligibility determinations. That someone has been Akin, Gump, and Wiley. And at Wiley, it has been our team of truly dedicated legal assistants, including Lauren Burns, Maggie Cole, Eden Hankin, Maeve Hickey, Jasmine Nazaire, Yehosef Thomas, and Karen Trainer, who collectively devoted hundreds, if not thousands, of hours to this necessary and integral work. I also want to recognize our lawyers who, in cases referred through the clearinghouse or otherwise, have taken on compassionate release cases with great energy, commitment, and empathy, including Ashley Bouchez and Hannah Miller, who appeared on the video, as well as Matt Gardner, Vesna Harisick, and Michael Fawcett. It is and has been our privilege to engage in this very significant, potentially life-saving work. To be publicly acknowledged for doing so is an extra and unexpected benefit for which we are extremely grateful to CCE. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Tamika, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you so very much for being here. I hope that you all have been enjoying the program as much as I have. It has just been an incredible evening. I'd first like to, of course, thank our incredibly gracious and wonderful law firms in Washington who have been a significant part of this evening and congratulate you again on your award. So to Akin, Gump, and Wiley Rein, in the words that we use at Deloitte, thank you for making such an incredible impact at a time that really, really mattered. We are incredibly grateful for you. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the steering committee who really made tonight's event possible. It's CCE's first and hopefully last virtual gala, but it has been a tremendous success and it has been a pleasure to serve you this evening. As the chair of the board for CCE, I recognize each and every one of our committee members who have endeavorably given their time, energy, and effort to the causes that we know significantly matter. Each one of them is actually listed in the program this evening. They were a significant part of bringing this evening together. I'd also like to acknowledge the award selection committee, which was chaired by Paulette Chapman of Coons McKinney. Paulette, you and your committee, no doubt, have done an outstanding job in selecting an exceptional group of deserving honorees. So thank you for all that you've done. I also am incredibly proud of my organization, Deloitte, in which we have been tonight's chair circle sponsor. This event and this organization means so much to me personally, but also to all of my colleagues in Greater Washington offices of Deloitte. We are way beyond proud to be part of the CCE family and are grateful for the work that CCE does to improve justice in the DC community. We are committed to bringing kindness, equity, and justice to our communities, and CCE stands for that core mission. Tonight's theme, as you know, is Rising Above. This was inspired by Maya Angelou's poem, Still I Rise. That beautiful poem always reminds me that despite the obstacles that have been thrown our way, we have and will continue to thrive. We will continue to rise. So we'd love to just take a moment to interact with all of you and hear some ways in which you have made a difference in your communities and families and other ways that we have supported each other throughout this difficult year. So if you click on the Mentimeter link, which is in the chat, and submit your answers, I'd love to hear ways in which you have risen this year. So please take a moment to say, how did you rise above the challenges of this last year? What did you do? So please click on that little chat, and it'll allow you to put your comments in, and it'll come right up on the screen. I know all of us have been through so much, and we've done so many things, whether it's helping our neighbor, whether it's been helping people that are in our community. Someone said doing lots of yoga. I would agree with that. There are so many things that we have done that are incredibly significant. I know a lot of people did step outside of their comfort zone and did things that they were not used to doing. And obviously, so many people have talked about being able to work with their children and to focus on their future and things that are important to them. Meditation has been significant. Keeping our family close has been significant. Thank you for those of you who have gone and shopped for elderly in your neighborhood. Yes, and prayer, compassion, and patience were absolutely a priority. Started the virtual exercise group, which we absolutely love. And we have all learned to pivot, but prioritize our families. We have learned to be present over perfect. All of this has been considerable. And those of you who protested, thank you for standing up for what was right. We are incredibly grateful and will always be incredibly indebted for you for all that you have done. So thank you all for engaging this moment of reflection with me. It is critically important. And I'm so grateful that we have found ways to find joy, to bring healing, kindness, and protection to our families, our communities, ourselves. We are certainly all in this together, and we are grateful. So it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce Khadija Clifton. Khadija is a speaker, a poet, a mother, and an activist in her Ward 7 community. She uses her life experiences to continue to uplift others. She is a former intern and community engagement associate with CCE. She is a graduate of Georgetown University's Pivot program, a business and entrepreneurship program for returning citizens. Khadija is someone who I believe embodies the message from Maya Angelou's Still I Rise in so many aspects of her life. Thank you, Khadija, for joining us this evening. And thank you for reciting this amazing poem. Khadija?
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may try me through the very dirt, but like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but like life, I'll rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meetings of my thighs? Out of the huts of history shame, I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain, I rise. A black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, bearing in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the hope and dream of the slave. And so, there I go. Thank you.
What a heartfelt performance. Thank you, Khadijah. We must rise above, and without a doubt, our next honoree has helped many do just that. Patty Mullahy Fugere, Patty to her friends, has been a leader in addressing affordable housing and homelessness issues in DC since 1980. She is a co-founder and longtime executive director of the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless, a DC nonprofit organization that serves our neighbors who struggle with homelessness and poverty. From what I understand, Patty hates attention, even though she is an icon in the DC legal community. So I think we're all lucky that she agreed to accept this award and celebrate with us tonight. While I could try to tell you about the many ways she's impacted the district, I'll let those who know Patty best sing her praises before she accepts the Justice Potter Stewart Award.
Patty has not only changed lives, but she's literally saved lives of countless people in the district who were in need of housing resources, emergency services, people who are often overlooked in the day-to-day in our communities.
There hasn't been a Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless without Patty. Patty was there at the beginning. When a pilot project that was sponsored by the DC Bar Foundation to combat homelessness in the District of Columbia. The next year, in 1987, the legal clinic was formed. Patty was one of the original board members. In 1991, she was asked to take over as the executive director of the legal clinic. And I can say that I believe in October of this year, Patty will then have served in this role for 30 years.
Patty is a great leader because she is a leader in times of crisis and times of uncertainty. Patty exhibited those leadership qualities very recently during the COVID-19 pandemic. And instead of giving up, Patty was able to come up with ways in which we could still serve the community.
Patty, for nearly 30 years now, has been able to both build a great team and lead with consensus to great impact. And that is what makes Patty a great leader.
She's helped create an environment where lawyers, organizers, advocates can all work together, supporting the community that we know have been impacted by injustice.
She will go down as being the leading advocate for those struggling with homelessness in the nation's capital, the leading advocate of our generation.
Patty's legacy will be the people that she has trained to carry on the mission of the Washington Legal Clinic. And that mission is rooted in justice for everyone. And it's rooted in a sense of compassion.
Congratulations. This is a well-deserved honor. I wish you well in all of your future endeavors. I'm so happy to be taking this journey with you and watching you for the last 14 years as you lead and as you grow. I'm so very, very proud of you, Patty.
We're Patty's kids. I'm Gavin.
I'm Genevieve.
And we couldn't be more proud of Mom receiving this award. We've seen firsthand all the time and all the soul that she's put into making all the good work that the legal clinic does possible in every way. And we couldn't be more admirable of everything that she does for us and for the people that work for the clinic and the people that the clinic works for.
Yeah, Mom will be the first to remind all of you that this award isn't for her, it's really for the people that she serves and that the legal clinic serves. And it's so important that we elevate their voices and listen to how we can serve them and serve others. And Mom's a shining example of that. She inspires so many people to work hard, to get people into housing and to find people their forever homes. And we're so proud of all the work that you do, Mom. You make the world and our city a better place, and we love you so much.
Love you, Mom.
Congratulations on this well-deserved award. We're so proud of you, and we're happy to see you receiving the recognition and the honor that you deserve.
I have to say, Patty, through your work, your example, and the impact that you have had in so many people's lives makes you truly deserving of the Justice Potter Stewart Award. So congratulations.
"15 months of no eye makeup, and tonight is the night I decide to put mascara on." I'm really overwhelmed. I'm getting a lot of credit for work that my amazing colleagues have done. But I will say I am deeply grateful to CCE for lifting up the legal clinic's important work for housing justice. At the clinic, we really truly are an ensemble cast. We believe deeply in the human right to housing, but it's the labor of all of us that moves us forward on the journey towards a more just and inclusive DC. So to our board and our staff and our volunteers, our allies and our clients, it's a blessing to be your companion on that journey. As I count my blessings, most of all, I think of my family. And as I have grown from daughter and sister to wife, mom, mom-in-law, and now nanny, the blessings have grown as well. So I thank you all for your unfailing support. You are truly my joy. Justice Potter Stewart, I have to confess that I didn't know a great deal about him. His name was not often associated with decisions that seemed relevant to my work, but there were a few significant exceptions, and there's one in particular that I looked up tonight. Justice Stewart's 1968 opinion in Jones versus Alfred Mayer, in a very small nutshell, held that Congress, in passing the Civil Rights Act of 1866, could bar private parties from discriminating based on race in the sale or rental of housing. Otherwise, Stewart cautioned, the 13th Amendment's promise of freedom would be a mere paper guarantee. Great decision, right? Well, we need not look far to recognize that the 13th Amendment's promise, at least with regard to housing justice, remains unfulfilled. Well, it's true that landlords can't lawfully discriminate based on race, but how then is it also true that 20,000 Black families were displaced from DC between 2000 and 2013? How is it true that nearly 90% of DC's homeless residents are Black? How is it true that the lucky applicant who finally makes it to the top of DC's decades-long 40,000 household wait list for subsidized housing, who more than 9 out of 10 times will be Black, will still be turned away time after time after time? Here's how. Landlords need not post a whites-only placard to exclude our clients. Without worry of violating any law, landlords can impose unreasonable minimum income requirements or tack on exorbitant holding and amenity fees as a pretext for excluding those whom they otherwise could not lawfully turn away. These are insurmountable barriers to that lucky applicant at the top of the wait list who, even with the government guarantee that rent will be paid, remains undesirable in the eyes of the landlord. Where is that promise of housing justice that Potter Stewart tried more than 50 years ago to affirm? Well, it need not be elusive any longer, at least not here in the hopefully 51st state. Pending before our council right now, there are several bills that would outlaw these pretextual screening criteria that rob too many of our Black and brown neighbors of equal access to housing. To our lawmakers, I implore you, pass the Fair Tenant Screening and Eviction Record Sealing Acts. To the DC voters here tonight, please tell your elected officials that housing justice matters. Now it's our turn to affirm the promise of housing justice. Now is the moment to define what kind of a post-pandemic community we will be. I urge all of us here tonight to honor the legacy of Potter Stewart and do all that we can in these challenging times to ensure that everyone in our community has a place to call home. Thank you, CCE. Thank you to my colleagues. I'm inspired and humbled to be a part of this group tonight.
Congratulations, Patty. Last, but certainly not least, it's my pleasure to introduce my good friend, whom most of you may know, or at least you know his voice, incomparable incomparable Kojo Nnamdi. For more than 20 years, Kojo hosted the Kojo Nnamdi Show and the Politics Hour on WAMU 88.5, Washington's NPR station. Before that, he hosted Evening Exchange on WHUT-TV and was news director, and then it was news editor and then news director at WHUR-FM, producing the award-winning local news program, The Daily Drum. A lifelong activist and journalist, Kojo has been at the center of facilitating critical conversations about our community, the law and justice, race, housing, education, politics, and the arts. He remains one of the leading educators on justice-related issues in the District of Columbia, using his platform to facilitate important discussions about both civil and criminal legal topics. I could go on and on about how great Kojo is, but I would be remiss to not share the stage with others who know and love Kojo, not only because of his work, but also because of the caring and committed person he is off the air.
I got to know Kojo the way everybody gets to know Kojo, by listening to him even before he was on the Politics Hour and he was on Evening Exchange. He has been a necessary fixture in radio and especially public radio in our city.
Kojo hosted the daily Kojo Nnamdi show at WAMU for 23 years. He was originally courted to join WAMU as a co-host on the Politics Hour. And then he did such a wonderful job that the station asked him to stay on and host a daily show, which originally was called Public Interest, and then eventually became the Kojo Nnamdi show as we know it today.
I think Kojo has educated and empowered DC residents in the area of justice through his guests, which include law enforcement officials as well as former lawbreakers. Through these conversations, he has examined really the multifaceted aspects of the justice system and to give them a view inside the system that they might not have received otherwise.
Kojo's show has done more to educate people with that 1 hour every week than anything I can think of.
People in the District of Columbia look to Kojo and listen to his show every day because it is such a great source of information. He's a legend in this city, and there's a reason for that, because he is a great reporter. He picks great issues that people care about. Wherever I am, if I'm able to listen to the radio at noon, I'm listening to Kojo, and I think a lot of people feel that way.
He's the voice of Washington, the voice of Washingtonians, and truly giving his listeners an opportunity to voice their opinion, engage on the issues, and engage with their elected officials and hold them accountable.
And he brings in issues for his show that cover every segment of injustice, to discuss both sides of that issue, to educate people so that in the long run, there is more, not less, justice in this city, in this region, and in this country.
When I became a professional journalist and started working overseas, I would often use clips from Kojo's interviews to train other on-air personalities about how to carry out a successful interview. So there are journalists now all around the world who know the name of Kojo Nnamdi because of those clips.
The 3 words that come to mind to describe Kojo are provocative, probing, and wise.
Kojo Nnamdi is the perfect person to receive this award because of the great contributions that he's made to justice in the District of Columbia. Journalists play a huge role in making sure that justice is done in legal cases, right? Because elected officials and judges, who are also elected officials, they listen when the public is educated and the public is outraged about an injustice. That's when we see movement in the courts.
Kojo, I won't say you will be missed because we still will look for you in the district. You have become indispensable in our city, and so we will look for you when we want to know how to think, just as you have, in fact, been helping us to figure that out. We will miss you, but don't go far.
Kojo, congratulations, my friend. Congratulations on this next chapter in your life. And thank you. Thank you for all the years of great reporting and great shows. And thank you for continuing to give us a little bit of your time on Fridays as you continue the politics hour. I will definitely be listening.
Thank you all. I was born in British Guiana, now known as Guyana, the only English-speaking country in South America, colonized by the French, the Dutch, and ultimately the British. By the time I came along, we were considered British citizens, and the country was run by a British governor. Of course, my ancestors were enslaved by the British. Nevertheless, every school day began by singing, "God Save the King," who was then George VI, and later, "God Save the Queen," who was still Queen Elizabeth. I had no idea why I was asking God to save these monarchs. If that wasn't bad enough, it was followed by the lusty singing of "Rule Britannia." Britannia rule the waves. Britons never, never will be slaves. You get the irony, and it wasn't lost on us school kids. So my first understanding of justice came from the lack of it. I soon began to witness the first movement for justice that I would experience, the movement for self-government and ultimately independence, which started in the late 1940s. But it was in 1957 that I truly began to understand how passionately large numbers of people felt about justice. I woke up one morning, looked out my front window, and literally thousands of people dressed in brightly colored African clothing were going by my house on the way to some kind of rally at a nearby public space. My parents explained to me that this was Ghana's Independence Day, and our people were celebrating it with hopes for our own independence at some point. I didn't know it at the time, but Martin Luther King Jr. had traveled to Ghana for that independence celebration in 1957, his first trip out of the country. Even as leaders of the independence movement in my own country invariably cited the civil rights movement in this country as a vivid example of a peaceful justice movement that they used as an exemplar. We were both in the streets seeking justice. That started me out on the path that brought me here today. I traveled north, first to Canada, then to New York, and then to Washington, getting involved with the student movement, the Black Power movement, the Pan-Africanist movement, and long story short, pivoted to news broadcasting, where while I had to leave my opinions at the door, I could not leave my humanity or my life experiences at the door. And I've tried to convey that on the news and talk shows that I hosted, with a lot of help, a lot of guidance from great production teams, both at Howard University Television and for the past 23 years at WAMU, where we were able to look at the issues of justice in housing and employment and healthcare, incarceration, returning citizens, and of course, for the past several years, the Black Lives Matter justice movement. As for justice and the law, the first time I served jury duty, I loved it. Citizen involvement in the process. I soon got involved with an organization known as the Citizens Advisory Committee to the DC Bar, where we were able to suggest significant improvements to the DC court system in order to benefit ordinary citizens. Some years later, my Leadership Washington classmate, Priscilla Skillman, who is here today, introduced me to the Council for Court Excellence. So I have long known and have long loved this organization. It is therefore with great appreciation and humility that I accept this award today. So thank you all. Stay safe, stay well.
Thank you, Kojo. Well, those are an impossible group of people to follow, but Good evening, everyone. For those who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm Misty Thomas, CCE's Executive Director. Thank you all for being with us this evening, and I do hope you've enjoyed tonight's program. And I hope you, like me, are inspired by that dream team of advocates and leaders we've just heard from. It is an honor that CCE is able to bestow annual awards named after Associate Justice Stewart, and tonight's awardees join an impressive group of people who've received this recognition in the past. So thank you for accepting this award, Patty, Kojo, Steve, and Ted. It's been very special to celebrate your work. And it's also my privilege once again to briefly recognize our most generous sponsors, Deloitte, Akin Gump, Errant Fox, Arnold and Porter, Lockheed Martin, Ulco, Venable, and Wiley Rein. And of course, to each of our other sponsors, all of whom are listed in your program and on our website. Truly, thank each and every one of you. And I'm blessed to be able to say there are too many of you to name tonight, so thank you. In closing, my pride in CCE's work is matched only by my gratitude for this amazing organization's people. Thank you to the community of donors and friends for partnering with us as we strive for equity and justice. It is my privilege to try every day to continue earning your trust and support and to ensure that you get to see CCE's demonstrable impact on justice in the district. The Council for Court Excellence has set some ambitious goals for the coming year. And so with you, I know we will continue to rise above. So I have a couple of asks of each of you attending tonight. First, please keep informed. Watch for our tweets and our quarterly newsletters. Keep in touch. Call or email me and the staff with your ideas, your questions, or insights. My second ask is keep rising above too. When called upon by the needs of your community and your neighbors, get involved and get generous. A link to make a contribution will be in the chat, and a link to our Twitter handle is also there for you to click and follow. I look forward to working with and for each of you. And thank you, Joe Davidson, for guiding us through tonight's celebration. You were great, and congrats to our honorees. I would like to bring wonderful DJ Stylist back to play one or two last songs to groove to as we close out the night. Feel free to stick using the chat to send your final congratulatory messages. And thank you all so much for being here. Have a great night.
All right. Well, Misty, you're amazing, as are everyone who was honored this evening. So I want to close out with some more DC vibrations and also some gratitude vibrations. So back to the Godfather to end our